Church, I want to ask you the question this morning, how great is your God? You know, we go through things in life. As I said, I really was not intending to sing that song. But we go through things in life, and many times we start to question things. We start to, doubt at times what we're going through. We look around and we say, well, God, where are you in all this? Many times, as Brother Chris brought out so well in our Sunday school lesson this morning, we look around at each other. But church, if we'll get a hold of the fact that we serve a great God, around each other won't matter to us anymore. The shortcomings that I see over here won't matter to me because I know God is still great. And the things that come against me over here aren't going to get me down because I know God is still great. So church, I want to ask you again, how great is your God this morning? Don't let go of how great God is. He's the same as He was the day He saved us. When He reached way down, as I've said so many times before, my story is not the same as your story. And in our humanly minds, maybe we think at times He had to reach farther down for me than He did for you. Maybe we look around and we say, well, He had to reach farther down for you than He did for me. But the reality of it is, it doesn't matter what we were doing, what we were in, what we were enslaved by. When we were in sin, we were all at the lowest level that we could possibly be. So whether you're the worst person that ever walked the face of this earth, or whether you're the best person that ever walked the face of this earth, before God, He had to reach just as far down for you as He did for me. And the same God that did that performed that miracle, there's nothing that can compare to it. There's nothing that anybody can do for me that can compare to God saving my soul. That same God is still the same God that we serve today. He's still just as great today. Yes, there may be things that we've gone through. Yes, there may be trials that we face. Yes, there may be hardships that we're looking at right this moment. But He's still the same God today. So church, don't let go of how great God is. There's a song that says, don't tell the storm, or don't tell God how big your storm is, but tell the storm how big your God is. Church, the situations that you're going through, the things that you're facing right now in this moment, however big they may be, are tiny compared to the greatness of our God. Sometimes we just forget that. I want you to turn with me to Job, if you will. And I've got about 3 pages worth of notes. It's probably going to get cut down to about a page here in just a minute. We all know the story of Job. We know that Job was an upright man. God said he was good in all his ways and gave the devil permission to touch his servant Job, and he could do anything he wanted to him except kill him. We know this story. But Job, the 13th chapter, the 13th verse, Job said, "Hold your peace. Let me alone that I may speak. And let come on me what will." We look back at the account of Job. There's many different messages that can be preached from Job. Many different messages. But we know, and the one that I want to bring to our memories here today is Job's wife that came to him and said, "Job, he's taken everything you've got. He's taken your children away. He's taken your cattle. He's taken your livelihood. He's taken all these servants. Everything that you've got, he's taken away from you. Why won't you just curse God and die?" But do you remember what Job's response was to her? Job said, "You speak as a foolish woman." And in Job, the 13th chapter here, we read, "Let come on me what may." As I've said many times before, as I've preached, Brother Chris has said it many times before, we often look at people in the Bible as superheroes or supernatural. Job was another man. Just as we are men and women sitting here today, Job was just like us. He didn't know what he was going to have to face. He didn't know the things he was getting ready to go through. He didn't know the attacks the enemy was going to bring on him. But what he did know is, let come on me what may. Not because he thought he was so great in and of himself. Not because he thought that he was going to be able to withstand everything by himself. But because Job had a confidence in God that he knew God would not fail him no matter what. So in having that confidence, he was able to say, "Come on me what may, I will still serve the Lord. I will still stand. I will still keep on going. I will not curse God. I will not go against Him, but I will keep on going for Him." Church, we've got to get the same resiliency about us, that it doesn't matter what comes against us. And I'm not sitting here today to condemn you. I'm not trying to put this all on you and tell you how bad you are, because I can assure you that there's things in my life that I have to go through these same steps often and on the regular. To say it's not about what I'm feeling right now. It's not about the hardships I'm going through right now. But I will not curse God. I will not go against His word. I will keep on going for Him, because come what may, He's going to be there for me. It doesn't matter what those around me do. It doesn't matter what the church does. It doesn't matter what every individual person does. What I know beyond a shadow of a doubt is God will not fail me. Church, what you're going through right now, God will not fail you. He will not let you down. But He'll be there again and again. We can see account after account after account of people in the Bible that had to come to a point in their lives that they said, God will not fail me. And come on me what may, I will keep on going for Him. One of my favorite accounts in the Bible is that of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I guess the reason why it's one of my favorite accounts is because, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, I've had to go back and study it over and over and over again, to get the encouragement that I needed. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't take the stand that they took for each other. They took the stand that they took because of their confidence in God. Church, what I want to get across to you this morning, what I want to share with you this morning is get a confidence in God so great that it doesn't matter what anybody else does. It doesn't matter what those around you do. It doesn't matter what leadership may do. It doesn't matter what anybody else may do. Your confidence in God is what's going to be able to get you through. There's an account of Julius Caesar. Brother Chris may remember this account. Brother Jason shared it in a devotion he did at headquarters a few months ago now, almost a year ago, I guess. But the account goes, when Julius Caesar landed on the shores of Britain with his Roman legions, he took a bold and decisive step to ensure the success of his military venture. Ordering his men to march to the edge of the cliffs of Dover, he commanded them to look down at the water below. To their amazement, they saw every ship in which they had crossed the channel engulfed in flames. Julius Caesar had deliberately cut off any possibility of retreat. Now that his soldiers could not return home or to their home continent, there were nothing left for them to do but to advance and conquer. Church, too many times we give ourselves a plan B. Too many times we say, well, if this doesn't work, I'll do this. If this doesn't work, I'll move on to this thing and I'll try this. If you've not figured it out by now, I'm a plan Z kind of person. I like to have a plan, and then I like to have a backup plan, and a backup to the backup plan. Because I've been in too many situations, been in too many events, that something didn't work out just the way I thought it was going to work out. And you had to quickly figure out what the right road to go down was. But church, what I can tell you from finding it in my own life is you will never need a plan B with God. If you put your confidence in Him and your trust in Him, He will get you through on His plan every single time. It may not be the way we thought it should go. It may not be easy to get down that road, but He will get us to where He would have us to be by His plan every single time if we'll just get in it and follow that plan. But what we do when we make a plan B is we begin to insert doubt. We begin to give a way of escape for ourselves that we say, but this didn't go my way, so God, I'm going to go off and do this thing to try to get my life back on track so I can get back in your will. When all the while God's saying, be in the middle of my will and don't leave it, even if a hardship comes, even if the trials come, even if you have to go through something, stay right where I would have you to be. Don't go off on your own understanding. Don't go off on what you think is best. Sam had a memory verse a couple weeks ago in school. In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, I believe, are the verses. But it says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Church, if we put our trust in God, He will direct our paths. He will be there for us every time. He'll lead us right where He would have us, even though it may seem dark, even though it may not seem where we want to be. God's got a purpose. Church, I've told you before, if it was up to Christopher, Christopher would not live in Cleveland, Tennessee right now. Not that I hate it here, but there are plenty of other places that I enjoy being more than I enjoy being in Cleveland. But because I had to put my trust in God, God has brought me here. And I don't know why He's got me here for all the reasons that He's got set aside. And if I'm being honest, sometimes, just to be real brutally honest, I guess, sometimes it feels like I'm here just to be a whipping post, so that somebody else has somebody to beat up on. But what I found is that again and again, God uses me being here for something for His glory. That's not a pat on my back. That's not to say that I do everything perfect or make every right decision. But what I found is that in the midst of my trials, in the midst of my struggles, God has used me and brought me to this point to do a work for Him, to be faithful to Him, to see something accomplished for Him. And church, the same goes for you. It's not just because I'm a minister. It's not just because my last name's Anders. If you will put your trust in God and your confidence in God, He will lead your paths and guide you exactly where He would have you to be, so that you can do a work for Him, so that you can accomplish something for Him, and you can see His glory shine through the situations. I'm just trying to find how much of this to cut out. Job went on to say, in Job, the 29th chapter, if you read this entire chapter, he's speaking about all the things that he had. All the things, the great things that he had, all the great things that he was able to do. But I want us to look at the 18th verse. Job was speaking and he said, "Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand." Like I said, first part of this chapter, Job's talking about all the great things he had, all the wonderful things, all the good things. A nest is a place of safety. Go back and study some birds. It's where they go back to and roost. It's where they lay eggs. It's where they feed the young until they're old enough to go out on their own. The nest is the place of safety. It's the comfortable place. And if you study birds very long, while we see a bunch of twigs and different things, a bird is smart enough that it will find soft material to line the inside of that nest, so that it doesn't become hard and pointy and sharp that it pokes the bird, but it becomes comfortable for the bird to stay there. Job had a mindset that all these good things around me, I'll just die in this nest. in this comfort zone that I have. Church, many times we look at the account of Job and we see how the devil came and took everything from Job. But I don't want us to forget the fact that God allowed this to happen. And what I've been saying all morning is God will not fail us, and He will direct us. So for God to allow this to happen, He had to have a greater plan, a greater vision ahead for what He wanted for Job. Just within the past year or so of studying the account of Job, it came to me that maybe God's plan here was to allow the devil to come in and take all those comforts of Job's life so that he no longer would stay in the nest, but that he would get out of that nest, out of that comfort zone, and see what it is that God had for him. If you've ever had shingles, you know there is no comfortable place you can get. There's nothing you can do. It itches and it burns and it hurts no matter what you do. With the boils that Job had, with the different ailments that Job had on his body, he got to a point there was nothing he could do to be comfortable anymore. Church, what I want you to realize, sometimes God comes along and He shakes the nest up and He gets rid of the comforts. And yes, it's hard for a time. It's hard to keep going. It's hard when you don't feel like you're getting that comfort, when you don't feel like you're getting that rest, when you don't feel the good things. But God does it to get us to a further point, to get us on down the road a little bit farther, to receive what He would have for us. Right now, in Asbury, at Asbury University, up in Kentucky. I don't know, is anybody familiar with that university? I'd never heard of it before this weekend. But at this university, it's a Christian university. Only has about 1,600 students total. Wednesday, they came together to have a convocation service. The chaplain of the school got up and began preaching, talked about the faithfulness of God, talked about repentance, talked about coming together and being what God would have you to be. After the chaplain got done, he offered a time of prayer. The people prayed. One young lady said that it was just like any other convocation they had been in. But she got up from that prayer, she went out, walked out of the chapel. She said as she got to the sidewalk, she began to hear the choir start singing again. And the thought just came across her mind, well, that's strange. The choir shouldn't be singing. Why are they singing now? So she said she turned around and went back into the chapel. And what she found was that some of the students there had found themselves a place to pray down at the altar, and they began seeking God with a fervency. And what has happened is, since Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, there have been students gathering in this chapel around the clock praying and seeking God. They're calling it the second Asbury revival. Back in the 70s, there was another instance of this. But for 84 hours this morning, I was reading, there has been nonstop praise and worship and seeking the face of God. But what they said it started with was the simple testimonies of some of those students getting up and thanking God for what He had done for them. Church, when we go back and we remember the faithfulness of God, the goodness of God, it begins to stir something inside of us. It begins to work within us. That we begin to start having a more confident relationship with God. That we can say, come what may, I know you're still going to be there for me. Come what may, I know you will not fail me because God, you are faithful. And it begins to stir up a worship inside of us that we've not experienced in many times before, because it's a true worship. It's something that comes from the very pits of our being that says, God, you have not failed me and you're still faithful. Today, come what may, I will serve you. Come what may, I will keep going forward. I will keep pressing and pushing into you. One of the deans at that college was interviewed, I believe it was yesterday. And he told the reporter that we need to be praying for a hedge of protection around the students there worshiping the Lord. This wasn't what the reporter expected to hear. Kind of took her off guard. She said, but sir, what do you mean? And his response was, when God said, let us arise and build, Satan says, let us arise and destroy. Church, I've talked to many of you and know that many, if not all of us, are going through some things in our lives. Some have spoken to me about feeling like they're in a rut. Some have spoken to me about problems that they're facing. What I can tell you is the devil desires nothing more than to come in and destroy you and to destroy everything that God has built up right here at Southside. I don't know why that sentence stuck out to me the way it did. But I want to remind you this morning, church, if the devil is coming and trying to destroy, it's because God is trying to build. It's not because we're just beaten down. It's not because God has forsaken us. It's not because He's given up on us. But it's because God is trying to build something that'll bring glory to Him. Something that'll make a difference in the lives of those around us. Something that'll go out and reach souls and touch the hearts of people. Satan doesn't like it and he wants to destroy it. So church, if you're going through something right now, know that God is still working. God is still trying to build. And that's the reason why Satan's attacking you. That's the reason why you're facing these things. Don't give up hope. Don't cower down and give in to what the enemy brings against you. But keep on building. God's got a plan and He's going to see something great come out of it. If we'll just get in line with Him. Church, stand with me if you would. There's an old adage that asks the question, how do you tell if it's really a work of God? The answer is, it's not how high you jump. It's not how loud you shout. It's not how fast you run. But it's how straight you walk when you land from that jump. When you stop running. When the shout's not there. Church, I've said this before. I know and I feel in myself right now as well. That we are in a place right now in this local church, and I don't know of a word to use to describe it except a rut. I've told you a little bit of my backstory. I'm a country boy. When I think of a rut, I think of somewhere where my truck's been and I've spun tires to the point that I've buried it down. And it's just dug in. You see, I've gotten myself in situations before. The tires of my truck would get so filled with mud, the tread would get so packed with mud, that my tires would essentially become smooth all the way around. And what happens is when you're in that rut, that tire just keeps spinning and spinning, and it never gains any traction. Might kick a little bit of dirt out, but it never goes anywhere because it keeps spinning in the same spot. But what I found is that you can get out of that rut, but you have to figure out a way to get over the hill that's been created. Church, we can get out of the rut that we're facing right now. Let me back up just a moment and rephrase that. We will get out of the rut that we're in right now. But it's going to take us figuring out how to get over the hills that we're going up. It's going to take us figuring out how to get over the trials that we're facing. How to move on beyond the things that we're going through right in this moment. And the way I think it's going to happen is because we're going to have to come back to a point that we remember God has been faithful. And we glory in the faithfulness of God. We worship the faithfulness of God. The goodness of God that has not failed us, no matter what's come against us, no matter what we faced, no matter what we've gone through. And sometimes this big old dummy would get himself stuck out in the middle of a field somewhere, and I couldn't get the truck out of that rut. But you know what I'd do? Is I'd begin calling my friends. And I'd begin saying, hey, I'm out here, I'm stuck. Bring the truck and bring some rope. And they'd come and we'd begin tying ropes, on hooks, on bumpers, on frames, on anything we could get a rope on. And they'd get up in their truck and I'd get in my truck and they'd begin to pull. And when they'd pull, we'd get up over that hill and all of a sudden I could drive anywhere I wanted to drive again because I was out of the rut. Why do I say that? Because church, this right here is where we go and find those friends that can help pull us out. If you need a hand, if you need a rope, this is the place to get the help you need. This is the place to reach out and to ask for that help, to reach out, to make those phone calls and say, hey, I'm stuck. I need some help right now. And together as a church, as one body, we're going to get together and we're going to begin to pull and we're going to get out of those ruts and we're going to start to see victory and we're going to be overcomers because God's faithfulness is still the same today as it was yesterday. God's faithfulness is still the same as it was the first time we ever knelt down and He reached down and rescued us out of that pit of sin. Because God has not failed us. Church, I want us to find a place to pray this morning. And I want us to remember the faithfulness of God. I want us to go back and recall the faithfulness of God to our minds until we get to a point that we can say, come what may, God's been faithful and I know He's going to get me through it. Come what may, I'm still going to stand for Him because He's going to be standing right there with me and He's going to get me through what I'm going through. Church, and if you need help, reach out for it. Let's get through this together. Let's be overcomers together and see the glory of God work here in this church. Let's find a place to pray here.